So your dog did a board and train. You saw the videos, you saw everything they were capable of, you're super excited, and now it's go home day, right? And we're excited for you. But the work for you as the human begins now, right? And so I always tell folks the dog is 50% and the owners are 50%. And together they make 100% success. So human training is really important. And now begins your human training as you get ready to pick your dog up from board and train. A couple of things to keep in mind. So you saw these videos, the dog has been doing great. When you show up to do your lesson, your go home lesson, and the dog sees you for the first time, they're gonna probably be off the rails. Maybe they won't, but they probably will be. And here's the reason. Because dogs think in pictures. They heavily associate with their environment, people in their environment, other dogs, other animals. Dogs really heavily associate. So for example, if your dog was an avid jumper, if your dog was really like a dog that pulled on the leash a lot, an incessant barker, maybe your dog was really super anxious, you are gonna see a lot of those behaviors pop up right at first when you enter back in the picture, because the dog assumes nothing changed on your end. Like, how does the dog know that you didn't just go on a cruise and that you just came and picked him back up from boarding, right? The dog's like, hey, thanks for picking me up from boot camp. They don't think that you changed. Why would they, right? Like, why would they have any data or reason to believe that you changed until they saw that you have? So when you have those first few minutes back with the dog, it looks chaotic. It really does. It looks very chaotic. Their heads are usually all over the place, and you see a lot of those behaviors that you came here for, you see them pop back up. And that's because of association. And so we expect that as professionals. We expect that with every go home, but we want you to expect that too. We want you to expect that it's gonna look like a circus for about 10 minutes, roughly, give or take. So we'll instruct you. We'll tell you exactly what to do. Don't be all nervous and anxious. We'll tell you exactly what to do upon coming to pick your dog up. The big thing is I just want you to expect it. The other big thing is I don't want you to expect to walk back in the door and your dog is just greeting you at the door with her hair blowing in the wind and rainbows, butterflies, unicorns, and 90s sitcom music playing in the background. Because that's not going to happen. In my early days of dog training, I used to let people just pick their dogs up. They'd come in, they'd have this reunion with the dog, they'd sit, they'd make out with the dog for 10, 20 minutes, and then we'd get into our lesson. And what I learned was that undermined all the hard work that we had done. I told the dog, I don't have to listen to you anymore, and I sure as heck don't have to listen to them. The dog already knows the permissive you. They already know the you who can't stop them from pulling on a leash, the you that can't stop them from incessant barking and jumping. They already know that version of you. So when your dog comes back into your presence, nowadays, we make it much more businesslike. We want to start right off the rip, teaching the dog rules, structure, accountability, and leadership from you as the owner. So I ask owners, please take emotion out of it. If you're feeling emotional about this whole process and, oh, I miss my dog and I hope they don't think I abandoned them and all that, I'm begging you as a professional, please take emotion out of it and set it over here. Because when we do it this business type way first, it works so much better. It's foolproof, really. So keep that in mind. When you come back in, things are gonna seem a little chaotic. We are gonna instruct you on exactly what to do to get everything back on track and flowing the way that it needs to. But things are gonna be a lot more business right off the rip, just because we've learned that works absolutely the best. Upon returning home, It's going to be about 7 to 10 days. That's the testing period. And I have lots of data to prove that that 7 to 10 day window is the sweet spot. The dog goes home and they go, once again, hey, thanks for picking me up from boot camp. And they assume they can still do all the old things that they used to do in those four walls at home. And you as the owner are going to hold them accountable with rules, structure, leadership, and you're going to show them in your home, oh, no. Things have changed here. You will come when you're called. You will do a downstay. You won't jump on the counters or get in the trash. You will no longer incessantly bark and pull on a leash. And so when the dog sees it from their owner, on their home turf, that's what glues everything together. But it's the 7 to 10 day testing period. I'm telling you, I could set my watch to it. After that 7 to 10 days, they quit testing. When the owners do things by the book, they quit testing. They go, oh, you're serious. Yep, I'm serious. And they go, this is life now? Yep, this is life now. And they're good. It just sticks. But I do want my owners to expect that. So that's it for this video. We're excited to work with you, and we're excited to get going on the human training. But those are just some things we want you to expect at the initial pickup and first 7 to 10 days home. All right, so let's talk about your dog's new language. In the dog training world, we call your dog's new language marker words. So you have your paper here, and it has a list of your dog's marker words, or in other words, their new language. Everything on that list pretty self-explanatory and things you've seen throughout the videos. But let's kind of go into that a little bit more. So your dog now, with training, understands these marker words are only going to be asked once. So for example, gone are the days of saying to the dog, sit, sit, sit. Those days are gone. From now on, I want you to say to the dog in a calm, natural voice, very neutral about things, sit. Almost like I'm going to go sit on the couch. Sit. Very matter of fact. So you say to the dog in a calm, neutral voice, sit, one time. Let me say that again. You say that to the dog one time. If within one full second the dog is non-compliant, that is when you're going to give them a tap on the e-collar. You're going to press that red button on the e-collar and you're going to give them a correction and hold them accountable for being non-compliant of a known command. And mind you guys, your dogs just went through an intensive training program. Your dogs have heard these marker words and been trained and had hundreds of repetitions on these marker words. They know them up and down, frontwards and backwards. So holding them accountable is what you as the owner really needs to do to get everything to be glued together, to get everything to stick. If you were to ask your dog, let's say, to recall twice, 3 times, 4 times, by the 4th time you ask them to come when they're called, they could be dead. They could be on the road. So we hold that standard with all the commands that we give the dog. We're only going to ask you once. And that is the most fair thing we can do for the dogs. Because by asking the dog to only do the command one time, takes the guesswork out. We're not asking the dog to do math, going, well, today she's going to ask me 4 times, but tomorrow it'll only be once. We're taking the guesswork out of it. We're giving the dog consistent behaviors, and then they give us consistent behaviors back. It's a hard habit for owners to break because the dogs that we see and get dropped off, owners were frustrated, right? So they were used to having no leverage and saying to the dog, hey, no, 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 and just getting increasingly elevated because they didn't have any leverage. But you have leverage now. And you don't need to get increasingly elevated and get repetitive with your request. Simply say the command one time. I do want to illustrate this to you to help you to kind of see it from the dog's perspective, right? So I don't wear my shoes in my house. but some people do. To lots of people, that's normal for them. But for me, it's not something I do. I take my shoes off when I come to my house, and I expect my guests to do the same. Now, what if I invited you over for dinner? And what if I said to you, when I answered the door, hey, how you doing? Come on in. And you walked in, and you kept your shoes on. And what if I suddenly switched? And I went, sit. Just sit down, sit. You'd be like, whoa, what's going on with this chick? She seems a little bit loose, right, in the head. Because what is normal to me is not normal to you. And me just shouting to you, sit, that doesn't indicate to you at all what is wrong. So in your house, it may have looked like when the dog did something naughty, you may have done something similar to like, hey, now stop that. Hey, now stop that. 4 words, none of which mean anything to the dog. The dog goes, you're agitated. I don't know why. I don't know what I've done, and I don't know how to fix it. Similar to if I just got agitated with you for wearing your shoes in my house. You'd go, I don't know what I've done to even begin to know how to fix it. Now let's replay that scenario. What if you came over to my house for dinner? I invited you in. I said, hey, how are you doing? Why don't you take your shoes off? Come on in and we'll have something to drink. Well, now I just communicated with you in an effective way that tells you I expect for you to take your shoes off. And you go, oh, okay, you take your shoes off. So that's my silly little example to help you kind of see things from the dog's perspective. Talk to them in their language. Don't just start barking orders and using a whole bunch of words. Stick to your marker words. Just keep in mind, dogs don't speak English, German, French, Spanish, Czech. All your dog knows are these words are assigned to a certain action and what result to give you based on that. So keep that in mind. I tell people hang this on your refrigerator for about a month till you kind of break some of those old habits. Roo, kennel. Down. Good. Try that again. Break. Don't look so wonky. Right. Roo, kennel. Good girl. Good girl. So kennel is a command. So if you have a dog that used to run away when you try to kennel them up, no more of that. Kennel is a command, just like any of these other commands. To send the dog to the kennel, we're going to use another hand signal. So we're going to be our pointer finger, and we're going to point straight into the kennel as we say the word kennel. How we've crate trained these dogs is to go into the crate, lay down, and relax. We don't want you to go to the crate and be standing and be anxious, or sitting up and then down. Go there and lay down. Now naturally, you're gone all day. If the dog needs to stand up, get a drink, well, of course. But overall, we're trying to create a mindset with the dog where the dog goes, yeah, just go to my crate and I lay down. So we've conditioned them over and over to kennel, down, kennel, down. Now, in addition to that, when you come home, you open the crate. The crate door opening is not a license to bust out of the crate. So we treat that as a threshold as well. So if you can't have the dog's focus here at the crate threshold, you're not going to have it out in the living room. You gotta have it here. Now, because Roo is a trained dog, she's not going to bust out of the crate. But this is the expectation right here. If she were, let's say, to get overly excited and go to bust out the crate, I would just simply shut the door in her face. That's what I would do. I would just kind of take the crate door and just shut the door and not engage with that behavior at all. To release the dog out of here, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to say break and release the dog out on break and say, okay, come on out, go get a drink, get something to eat, maybe grab your bone, lay down and chew it, whatever. Like, just casually come out. Or you can call the dog to you into recall. Rue, sit. Good girl. Break. Down. Good job. Good girl. Yeah. So down is a command. It's a position. It relates to the dog as lay your body on the ground. Down. A lot of times folks use the word down as in like get down off of there, right? So the dog gets up on the couch and they're like down. Well, if you tell a fully trained dog to down while they're on the couch, guess what the dog's gonna do? Just lay down on the couch. So down is a position. It's not a command like get down off of there. So this is an example of thresholds. So I always tell folks, if you want to have the dog's attention and the focus outside, you gotta start here at the threshold. If you can't have their focus and attention here, how in the world are you gonna have it out on the sidewalk, at the vet's office, at the park, at a patio, in your backyard? You're gonna be struggling. So have their attention here at the door and have them wait for a release to go. Now, if you had a leash hook to the dog, you simply would say heel and you'd walk out the door. But I don't have a leash hook to her, and let's just say I'm gonna go out and play with her. Break! There's the release. One of the things that I'm the most proud that we do here is a thing that we call bubble work. And what that means is we train dogs to stay within a bubble around us, or in other words, their owners. And so what that looks like is, the dog is off running and playing and exploring, but they stay organically within about 30 feet of their handler. And so we call that bubble work, and it's just an organic thing that we teach dogs. Rue, here! Sit! Oh, what a good girl. So this is an example of focused recall, where I'm standing still. I ask the dog to come to me. She slows down, anticipating that I'm going to ask her for a sit. That she has to look up into my eyeballs and say, yes, ma'am, what can I do for you? And then from this point forward, I'll either hook a leash to the dog and put them in heel. I will put them in a stay. I'll walk them into the house because I called the dog. No, sit. That'll work. I called the dog for a reason. And the reason was, dog, I need you for something. So my standing still, calling the dog to me, asking for that sit, indicates to the dog, I need your attention. So it differs quite a bit from migrating recall, which is much more casual. So this is an example of what migrating recall looks like. Migrating recall simply means migrate with me. If the dog is over there and you're going to go to the barn, or you're going to go from the front yard to the backyard, or you're going to go from upstairs to downstairs, and you simply want the dog to migrate with you, you don't need him to come and give you a fancy sit and look up into your eyeballs. What if you're pushing a wheelbarrow or something of that nature? So it's a very practical command, and it simply means, hey dog, just move with me, just migrate with me. Now my feet moving indicate to the dog that I don't need them to sit and look up into my eyeballs. It's a very casual recall. When the dog gets to me, also I release them back into break. Like, okay, you caught up with me? Awesome. Break as you were. I don't need anything else from you. I just simply needed you to go from the front yard to the backyard or what have you. So I'm going to show you that again. So I'm going to migrate. So you even see that my moving feet indicated to her she really didn't even need to slow down. Because my feet were moving, she knew that this was a casual thing. Once she caught up with me, that I was likely just going to put her in break again. All right, so So this video is going to be on the heel command. Heel. You want your leash to be short, but not tight. Sit. Good girl. So when you start off heeling your dog, you want to already get the appropriate amount of leash gathered up in your hands. Okay, so it should be loose enough that your hands can dangle. You can go on a nice walk, but it shouldn't be so tight that the snap is tipped up. It shouldn't be like this at all. So you should never have that snap up. That snap should always be dangling down straight towards the ground. It shouldn't be so loose that the dog is tripping over it. The reason we want it short but not tight is so that if the dog would get out of the heel position, we can very easily give them some guidance back into the heel position, or what we call the box. The box is where, sit, thank you. The box is right here. So we want the dog to walk in this position, in the heel position box. This is what you're going to use for all of your structured walks. In other words, when you hook a leash to this dog and you take them off of property, or you go on any type of walk, I want you to have the leash, or the leash hooked to the prong collar, and have the dog in heel. When you're walking, the dog's feet should be slightly behind your feet in follow mode. If the dog has its feet up here, by default, that puts them in lead mode. So I'm going to show you that again. Heel. Give her a little guidance back into the box. Turn. The dog should turn with me. A little distracted. When that happens, that's why you have a short leash, so that you can give them that guidance that they need. Come to a stop, sit. Very good. Heel. So the biggest thing is we want them in follow mode. Sit. So that is heel. So here's an example of what sit should mean to the dog. Friendly stranger. Oh, you're cute. The dog should not leave the side of the handler or the owner to engage with a friendly stranger. A friendly stranger walking up to the dog is not an invitation for the dog to go, woo, like, I'm going to live my life and disregard everything I've ever learned, right? We know dogs like that. But those aren't our dogs anymore. Our dogs are expected to stay beside us, get their affection and attention from us. And then if we choose to let them engage with a friendly stranger, then we can release them to do so. But we don't want the dog to take it upon themselves to leave their owner, which is their leader. And the dog right now is working for me. And so in the real world scenario, when you're at the vet or you're at a patio or out on the sidewalk taking a walk, and you come in contact with a friendly stranger, the dog should stay engaged with you as the handler unless you say, break. And then you allow the stranger to interact with the dog on your terms. That is what sit means to us. So this is the stay command. Stay. You're going to take your left hand and you're going to send it straight down towards the dog's nose, and you're going to say, stay. That left hand going straight down towards the dog's nose is a hand signal that we use, and it indicates to the dog, don't follow me. So you have the verbal, that's true, but you also have a hand signal with that one, which is this, stay. Stay is a command that is very situational, right? So if somebody comes to the door unexpectedly, you can put the dog in a down stay and open the door, right? You're gonna walk across the street to get your mail, Have the dog do a downstay up on the porch or something of that nature. So you can get distance and duration in on downstays. You can get a dog to downstay, 15, 20 minutes for as little as 20 seconds. But it's very situational, and it's a command that we use a lot off of property. So again, that's a downstay. No inching, no scooting, no crawling around. If the dog so much as sits up in a downstay, now we're talking correction. Rue, here, place. Good job. Good girl. So this is the place command. So place is very similar to downstay, but place has to have an object. So it has to be a raised bed, a mat, a pillow, something of this sort. Place is intended for longer periods of time. Also, if you saw how I sent the dog, I called her to me, and then I used my index finger and I sent her right to the bed. So that's kind of like the hand signal for place. Place. And I send her right to the bed, indicating exactly where I want her to place. You saw that when she got onto the bed, she went onto the bed and she immediately defaulted into a down. That didn't happen by accident. That's how we train the dogs, is go to place, lay down, and decompress. So that is the place command. You see she's got her head down. She's totally relaxed, so she knows she might be there a while. So let me explain the difference between place and downstay. I see that owners tend to blend the two commands, and I don't want you to do that. They are two separate commands, but they come from the same place. They're both holding commands. I illustrate it like this. GM makes Chevy and GMC. They both come from GM, but if you get a Chevy, you're going to have this experience. If you get a GMC, you're going to have this experience. So downstay and place, both are holding commands. They both say to the dog, hold this position. But depending on whether you do a downstay or place, depends on the experience that you and the dog are going to have. How so? Place has to have an object. Without an object, it's no longer place. It therefore becomes a downstay. A downstay needs no object. So if there's no object, it's a downstay. It can't be place without an object. What can the object be? It can be a rug, it can be a pillow, it can be a raised bed like this. It can be a beach lounge chair, it can be a bale of hay. You can get creative. When we have dogs here, they place on all different kinds of objects, so you don't have to stick to only one object. We teach the dogs that when you go to place, it can mean any object that you need to decompress and relax on. Downstays, they can be anywhere. They can be in the kitchen, in the living room, on the back porch, on the front porch, in the back seat of your car. They can be out at a patio. They can be anywhere, and they need no object. Place is intended typically for longer periods of time. And I'm talking 3 hours, long periods of time. Whereas a downstay historically is going to be a shorter period of time. It's going to be something very much like, oh, somebody showed up unexpected at the door. You put the dog in a downstay, answer the door. Oh, I'm gonna go across the street and get the mail. I'll put the dog in a downstay up on the porch. I'm gonna go hang out at a patio, right? Maybe gonna have a cup of coffee with a friend. Put the dog in a downstay underneath the table. Downstays are gonna be very situational, and historically they're gonna be a shorter duration. The only way that the dog is released out of either place or a downstay, the only way is one of three. The owner says, break, which means, all done, go be a dog, get up, go play, have a drink of water. That's a release from either command. Calling the dog to you, doing a recall out of either command, or returning back to the dog, picking up the leash, and saying heel and taking them to another location. Only those three things, break, recall, or heel. Those are the only things that release a dog out of a holding command, such as place or a downstay. Here's a really, really important one. You know what does not release a dog out of a holding command, such as place or downstay? Praise. So if somebody comes up to your dog, a friendly stranger at a patio, and goes, "Oh my gosh, your dog's so cute," and they begin to touch your dog, which I hate, but they begin to touch your dog, that's not a release. If you have company come over and your dog's minding his business, laying on place in the living room, and your company comes over and touches and engages the dog and then walks away, that's not a release. So we want to teach these dogs that praise is not the release of command. You are to stay here and hang out until I release you as your handler. Out. Good girl. So the out command means, hey dog, whatever you have in your mouth, stop with it. Stop engaging with whatever you have in your mouth. Because sometimes we need the dog to out off of something that they can have, such as food, right? So I let the dog have the food. She's allowed to have the food, but when I said, out, she needed to disengage with that. Now, I didn't care where she went. She chose to come lay over there. So I don't really care where the dog goes. But keep that in mind. Sometimes the dog is going to pick something up in their mouth that we don't want them to have, right? Like something weird, like, maybe they're chewing on a rock or something, right? And we're like, oh, out. Or we're cooking in the kitchen and we drop something, and the dog goes to pick it up and we're like, no, out. We don't want them to engage with that. But sometimes it is a ball or something of that nature where they're allowed to have it. But when I say out, I want you to disengage with it. And the reason is you never should negotiate with a trained dog about getting something out of their mouth, whether they were allowed to have it or not. And so the out command simply means disengage with what you have in your mouth, and then I might send you back to it. Break! Yeah, come here, girlfriend. You can have the rest. Come here. So you can go back to it, perhaps, because it's just in that moment I needed you to disengage with it. So I'll show you that one more time. Out! Out! Good girl. That's a good girl. So very different from a straight no. So I'm going to go over a cool thing that we do here called tone avoidance. I'll put it to you really simple. You know what an underground fence is? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, so I'll explain that. An old underground fence says this is my yard, that's my neighbor's yard, there's a fence underground. How the dog learns the fence is they walk up to the fence, collar goes beep, dog challenges the boundary, collar goes beep, shock, dog goes, whoa, I'm not going over there. And therefore the boundary is set. That's how an old underground fence works. A lot of people still have them. Well, now with modern technology and some technique and some finesse, we can do this thing called tone avoidance with your average e-collar, and we can actually put boundaries in your home. And we can actually put a boundary around anything. Countertops, trash cans, toilets, kitty litter boxes, cats. I mean, I've put boundaries around toddlers with aggressive dogs. We can get really creative with tone avoidance. Let's just go over something basic, such as keeping the dog off the counter. Okay, so here's how tone has been taught to your dog. So your dog knows tone recall, and your dog also knows this thing called tone avoidance. Here's how tone computes the dog. Dog hears this. When they hear that beep, it computes to the dog two things. Number one, stop. Number two, find me, or their handler, right? So when the dog hears tone, it computes to them as stop, then find someone. So we've done all the legwork. We've taught them what tone means. So now you're going to get them home and you're going to do this thing called tone avoidance. They've already done it here at our place, but you have to create the boundaries at your place. In fact, this is such an essential piece to our program that if owners don't go home and do tone avoidance with the dog, I'm like, don't tell them we trained your dog. Don't tell anybody we trained your dog, because this is such an essential piece to relationships, creating boundaries in general, and behavior. So this is really important, and I'm really excited for you to get your dog home and do this with them. So let me show you how it works with the counter. Your behavioral corrections, I'm always going to recommend, are going to be 50 or higher on the remote. Okay? So that's always going to be the recommendation, 50 or higher on the remote for behavioral stuff. So I want you to bait the dog, right? You can do whatever you want, right? Some dogs, it's as simple as laying a bag of potato chips out. Other dogs, you might need to smear some peanut butter on the edge of the counter. Get a ribeye, put it up on the counter. I don't care what you do. But I want you to bait the dog when they come home on all these different things. So the dog is going to come home to your house, and guess what they think? Nothing changed. So they're going to think they can still jump up on the counter. They can still get into stuff, right? And so you're going to have, bait here. And the dog is going to walk up, and you're first going to go, beep. Now, 9 out of 10 times, because your dog is trained, 9 out of 10 times, they're going to walk over to you, and they're going to go, yeah, what's up? They're going to look at you and go, what did you need? Because they stopped, and then they found you, right? That's what tone means. So they're going to walk over to you, and they're going to go, what's up? Don't touch them. Don't engage with them. Don't pet them. Pay them no mind at all. And they're going to go, well, okay. I smelled something really good up on the counter, so I'm going to go back in there. Whether that's 20 seconds later, 20 minutes later, or 2 days later, doesn't matter. When the dog goes back to the counter, you're going to go beep, and then you're going to shock on the red button. So it's going to go beep, and immediate correction. And they will hightail it out of there, and they'll look at you like, oh my God, the counter just bit me. And again, pay no attention. Don't touch them. Don't talk to them. Don't engage with them. And do not baby them in any way. Here's why. I want it to be about the counter, about the trash, about the kitty litter box, so on and so forth. I want it to be about those items, not about you. If you make it about you, sure, they won't jump on the counter when you're around. But as soon as they hear you walk downstairs to do a load of laundry, yep, you guessed it, they'll be back at it. As soon as they hear you go outside to get the mail, yep, they'll be back to their old tricks again. When you make it about the countertop, the trash, the toilet, kitty litter box, so on and so forth, now you don't have to police them. So the recommendation is when you do this at home and you bait them, watch them on a camera. A baby monitor, a ring cam, look through a window, crack in the door. Make them feel like they're totally alone, and then all of a sudden, boom, the counter just got hot. So this is called tone avoidance. I want you to go home, and I want you to do this within the first 3 days that your dog is home. It's very important, and you're going to be blown away by the results.